Thank you to Kenzie Bruce for his incredibly generous support on Patreon. Queza versus Syr Gwyn, Estrid, and Shorikai. That hand is very, very tempting to keep. If we get into one more untapped land, we can go for a turn 2 Gilded Lotus and then do pretty much nothing else, so one mulligan. You know, once in a while you'll get an awesome uncommon commander that's totally unappreciated because its set symbol is the wrong colour. Anyone remember Tatyova and how underappreciated that was at first simply because it's uncommon? Well, I think the same is going to be said of Queza. I mean, hopefully we'll prove my theory in this game, but I actually have high hopes for this commander because, well, I think it's going to perform really well, and it has done really well in playtesting. Drew into Notion Thief there, by the way. Wayfarer's Bauble for Shorikai, and Sir Comrade got out a Sigarda's Aid, I didn't realise. Field of the Dead, we will just throw out a Felwar Stone. Felwar Stone is actually going to make all of our colours for us, which is useful. Wayfarer's Bauble gets sacrificed. Carpet of Flowers against a couple of blue players is going to net them a decent amount of mana. 2 islands over here, 2 islands here as well, so making a couple of green mana after targeting the Shorikai player. And that allows them into a Sylvan Library. I was just debating whether or not to play a tap land into Thought Vessel next turn. I think instead we'll get down the Notion Thief. They can choose not to draw with the Sylvan Library, but we're keeping them off cards at the very least. Open the Armory, searches for an aura or equipment. They search for Lizard Blades, 2 to play, 2 to equip, and it has double strike. Alright, so that's a Jace's Archivist, which goes really well with the Notion Thief, so now I'm wondering if we just go for the Jace's Archivist. We could play Jace's Archivist now, and then play Notion Thief next turn and activate the Archivist. So yeah, let's get the tapped Field of the Dead into play and do that. Mirage Mirror into play for the Azorius player. And they can freely draw with the Sylvan Library thanks to us not getting down Notion Thief. Noteworthy that they didn't take any additional cards from the Sylvan Library, so only at 6 in hand. Frantic Search, I was just going to say, luckily they're tapping out so that we don't have to worry as much about losing Notion Thief to a wheel. But Frantic Search going to untap some lands. Well, that's very telling. Discarding an Arcane Denial suggests that they do have a counterspell in hand of some kind. Alright, and yeah, there's the Swords to Plowshare, so we were never going to get the one-sided wheel off with the Notion Thief anyway, because they would have exiled something. The Swords to Plowshares not going on our commander at least. Alright, and there's a Windfall, so yeah, so much for that. Luckily we've got a lot of shuffle effects in this deck, because I'm worried about decking myself. We do have 1 Labman effect in Laboratory Maniac, but that's only if I'm accidentally going to deck myself. At least we got into some more ramp here. We've got Reanimate for the Notion Thief as well. There's a Worm Coil Engine here as well that we could also reanimate. Embereth Shieldbreaker, that was Battle Display. And that went on to the Mirage Mirror from the Knight's player. And then the enchantment Knight's Charge. Alright, and we draw into Void Rend. We'll throw out a land. And then ramp a little bit more Azorius Signet. And we can also play the Wayfarer's Bauble, speaking of ramp, and crack it, as well as going for Reanimate onto the Notion Thief. Shorikai Genesis Engine into play now. Sylvan Library on the stack, Mystical Tutor being cast by the Estrid player. And it was Gitaxian Probe that they went for with that. That's a strange use of Mystical Tutor, I think. Alright, and they went for the extra draws on Sylvan Library, so actually got us into a Vampiric Tutor there, as well as a land to make for the turn. Skyclave Apparition, is that? Yeah, that's. I always think it's mana value 3 or less, but it's actually 4 or less, so down goes the Notion Thief. It's already drawn us a couple of cards though, so I think it was worth reanimating. Drew us a couple of cards and got rid of some removal. Deciding to play the Embereth Shieldbreaker that they revealed to us previously. Dousing Dagger, a means of some ramp for the Equipment Knight player. So it looks like we've got free reign to do pretty much whatever we want here. The Dousing Dagger going to be equipped for free onto the non-haste Knight. Plants being made over here. They equip with power, don't they, not toughness. Anyway, we can actually afford to Vampiric Tutor for a Time Twister, and then get our commander down and play the Time Twister, so definitely have a stop on the upkeep. So Vamp Tutoring during the upkeep. Not particularly happy with my hand that I wheeled into, so we will go for the Time Twister. Then draw into that, obviously, play a land for the turn. We'll go for our commander. Out comes Queza, so after that it is Time Twister. And we'll shuffle everything around and each of us will draw into 7 cards. Because we draw into 7 cards, that will hurt our opponent 7 times. Drew into a Teferi's Puzzle Box, some more Ramping Thran Dynamo, Esper Sentinel is nice. Ethereum Sculptor for the Artifacts player. It's noteworthy that we actually have 3 islands in play over here now, so the Carpet of Flowers player should have noticed that and started targeting us. Shorikai makes a pilot token and plays a Thought Vessel. Then follows that up with a pet card of mine that I've never got to play, Forsaken Monument. Still getting free reign with that Sylvan Library, unfortunately. But still pointing the Carpet of Flowers over here. Yeah, like I said, we've got 1 extra island here, so they missed out on a green mana. Unbridled Growth onto a land. Estrid enters the fray now. Serra's Sanctum tapping down for 3 mana and then being untapped by the Estrid. So that allows them into a Rhystic Study. That's not nice. Followed by a Rule of Law. Seeing Syr Gwyn enter play now, and they can't afford to pay for the Rhystic Study, so already the tax not being paid on that. I always thought it was strange that this commander doesn't have haste. It should be Vigilance, Menace and Haste, surely. See if they decide to swing into Estrid here. Nope, deciding to swing into us. And then pulling back. I mean, we can see stacks pieces over here, so I think we should be concentrating on the BAMP player. And yep, doing the right thing in my opinion, going into Estrid and yeah, really struggling here. Yeah, deciding to go back into us. So this is probably just a means of them flipping round the Dowsing Dagger because they don't think that we're going to block with our commander. They do have a full grip here, so maybe flipping round the Dowsing Dagger is the right thing for them to do. So now they get into Lost Vale, which taps for 3 mana of any one colour. Okay, we just draw into a land, so yeah, as much as I'd love to get a lot of stuff down here, I think it just has to be Teferi's Puzzle Box. It's not an incredible hand that we have, so yeah, let's swing into their commander first. Knocking Estrid down to 2 loyalty. And we'll just throw out the Teferi's Puzzle Box and a land, I think. Triggering Field of the Dead now as well, thanks to playing our 7th land of a different name. Teferi's Puzzle Box triggering on everyone's turn here, so going to put 6 cards from the bottom and draw 6. Shorikai going to make another 3/3 pilot token. Filigree Angel is the spell that they've decided to cast here. And they should be paying into the Rhystic Study unless they're desperate to hold up a counterspell, and looks like they are doing. They gain 3 life for each artifact in play, so currently at 38. That jumps them up to 62. Now a 3/3 swinging in at Estrid. And this time they decide to block, so we are going to get a 4/4 token here. Loxodon Warhammer coming down before the BAMP player's turn to draw them another card with Rhystic Study. I don't know why you would do that. Yeah, and then it gets, so it gets played out at instant speed thanks to Sigarda's Aid and gets equipped for free onto the commander. Yeah, don't see why you wouldn't just do that at the end of this player's turn. Teferi's Puzzle Box goes on the stack last, so resolves first. And they will get to draw the additional cards afterwards with Sylvan Library. So already at 7 cards in hand. Still pointing the Carpet of Flowers over here, missing out on mana. And we see a Heliod's Generosity. Estrid's Invocation, that can come in as a copy of any enchantment. So no prizes for guessing, they get another copy of Rhystic Study, making our spells cost 2 more. Which won't necessarily be too difficult if we can only cast 1 spell a turn. Curiously not doing anything else on their turn though. And checking the chat, the Estrid player is holding us all at ransom with a Cyclonic Rift. Typically speaking, I don't answer to terrorists. So if you're saying, oh, I won't rip it if you leave me alone, well, that's not for our benefit, is it? It's for yours. So yeah, I'm not going to bow down to that. I will certainly keep bullying the Estrid player. It's clear that they want to get into the late game. Kinsbell Cavalier is double strike, so time to see if the Mardu player is one to be manipulated or not. Yeah, so I just said in the chat not to be manipulated, and yeah, the player over here said to just get the rift done as well. So Gwyn is going into the BAMP player. Okay, tap down a bunch of mana there, so yeah, does that mean they were lying? Alright, yeah, our opponent was, yeah, you call it a bluff, I call it a lie. And that's why you don't allow people to hold the game ransom. So yeah, if we were going to see a rift on our turn attacking in, because if the knight player wasn't going to do it, I was certainly going to swing in this way. Wasn't going to crack this for another land, but we can do it now because we're not going to lose out on the zombie to the Cyclonic Rift. Okay, Smothering Tithe, not all that enamoured about Smothering Tithe. We're going to take out the Bamp player here, because we are going to get a load of pings on them. So it's a ping each on my other two opponents, and then we're taking Estrid out of the game here. So that takes them down, and we can actually start playing the game again, now that the stacks piece has gone down. So that is Sol Ring. Argument to be made for us keeping some cards in our hand for the Tellurian Winds. Okay, Bloodforged Battle Axe is being played at instant speed, thanks to the Sigarda's aid. So the commander is now a 10-5 with double strike, lifelink, trample, vigilance and menace. So yeah, if we can get rid of that, that would be great. Would really like to keep hold of the Dovin's Veto, but I'm thinking we keep hold of the majority of cards in hand and go for Tellurian Winds this turn. I think I might just go for Marauding Blight Priest first. Double up on some of these drain effects. Alright, so we'll discard 4 cards to the Tellurian Winds here. That gets us into Rhystic Study and Alhamret's Archive. We'll continue to spread the damage around so that we don't look like we're bullying just one player. And then every time we gain life, each opponent loses a life to the Marauding Blight Priest, so that doubles all these triggers up. Going to pretty much empty our hand here, unfortunately. We'll play the Gilded Lotus, accelerate our mana here, and go into Rhystic Study and hope people don't pay into that. Unfortunately, can't get down the Alhamret's Archive with the Rhystic Study, because that would obviously be really good, especially with Teferi's Puzzle Box. So we just have to leave it there, unfortunately. Once again, a pilot being made by the Shorikai. And then Thoughtcast, I assume that was only cast for 1 mana. Soul Guide Lantern. And they are getting the triggers from this, gaining 2 life every time they cast a colourless spell. And they are gaining the triggers from this, gaining 2 life every time they play a colourless spell. Exiling the Time Twister from our graveyard. Yeah, there are ways of grabbing that back, but we've got plenty of wheels in the deck. Master of Ethereum. And doing well on paying the tax so far. This is the problem when you get into the later game and people have more mana. Unlicensed Hearse. We're at least probably keeping them from getting out another card or two. Minamo, hitting play as well, can untap a legendary permanent. And the 5-5 swinging in at the Knight player, so not necessarily seeing us as too much of a threat yet. I mean, they should be worried about commander damage from Syr Gwyn. I'm wondering now if I maybe should have gone for Alhamret's Archive instead of Gilded Lotus and Rhystic Study, because I didn't think they were going to pay into the Rhystic Study. At least then I would have had 2 cards in hand for the Teferi's Puzzle Box, and would have drawn into 4 thanks to the Alhamret's Archive. That obviously makes it more likely that we can get into wheels and stuff. Open the Armoury has been drawn into again by the Mardu player, so they could knock us out with Sir Conrad this turn. And they have gone for Argentum Armour, so that will buff up their commander enough to deal lethal commander damage. And they can play the Argentum Armour, pay for the Rhystic Study, so we've gained no benefit from that whatsoever. Jumping up to a 16-11. So of course swinging in at us, as they probably should. So targeting the 11-11 with the Argentum Armour will blow it up, they draw a card, lose a life, and drain us for 1. So I'll just block with as much stuff as possible, excluding my commander here. Can't be bothered working out the combat phase. First strike damage, oh that's interesting, yeah. They'll deal first strike damage and then the Battle Axe will come out and get equipped up with the Sigarda's aid. I think I've actually had that happen to me before, so yeah, didn't account for that. So yeah, they still get us here, I think, because that bumps it up to an 18-11, so they get us at 22, where we would have only been at 20 before, so yeah, I should have blocked with the commander apparently. Didn't get into anywhere near as many wheels as I wanted, unfortunately. We lost the Jace's Archivist and did manage to get into the Time Twister, but yeah, surprisingly had very few cards in hand there, but we weren't going to survive until the next turn anyway, so even though I should have got out the Jace's Archivist or the Alhamret's Archive, yeah, we weren't going to survive until the next turn anyway, so don't feel too bad about it now. Untapping the commander, the Shorikai with the Minamo, and making another pilot token. They've activated the unlicensed Hearse as well. So underneath that is Open the Armory and a Plains. Thought Monitor will enter and draw 2. Fact or Fiction, just hunting for removal against the commander. Some lands, there's Phyrexian Metamorph, Dig Site Engineer, and Tameshi Reality Architect. Just gave him the option of Phyrexian Metamorph there, so I'll put the Metamorph into hand. Tapping down the Shorikai again. And once again using Manamo, and once again Shorikai. Arcane Signet, Nettle Sice, that should be enough to block the damage that's coming in from Sir Conrad. So that makes a Germ, currently a 13/13. Shadow Spear, and then playing out the Phyrexian Metamorph probably comes down as Nettle Siced. And it does, so because it enters as that, it still gets the Living Weapon trigger. So we get what is now a 15/15, 2 of those in play. So they can actually kill Sir Conrad if they get enough triggers. The problem is, there is still the Argentum armor in play, so they can blow one of these up. They might still be able to throw enough tokens in the way to help the damage be mitigated there. Acclaimed Contender is an attempt at some card advantage, and they reveal a Quieter Spike. So that is going to give Death Touch. It's only 3 to play and a free equip. I think the best card in this game has been Sigarda's Aid. Inspiring Veteran. I think they should definitely be thinking about getting Death Touch on their commander, and there it is, the Quieter Spike coming into play. That's going to make it pretty much impossible to do anything about their commander now. Darksteel Plate gives it Indestructible. So swinging in with a 23/12 with Vigilance, Menace, Death Touch, Double Strike, Indestructible, Lifelink and Trample. And then they get to blow up the original Nettle Sice, so they've only got the Phyrexian Metamorph one in play. So just doing what we did and blocking with a whole bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, Double Strike / First Strike and Death Touch just means that you only have to deal 1 point of damage to each creature, and then they've still got the Double Strike damage after that, which is enough to take anyone out because it will be 23 damage again. Our opponent's putting blockers in order for whatever reason. So all the creatures going down to the First Strike damage, and still some damage went through there, so Quieter Spike is going to trigger, not that that matters. Still got a load of Bloodforged Battle Axes to come in, and each one is going to buff the commander up by 2 to its power, so definitely enough here. Not sure if they had commander damage on them before, but they've got 11 on them now anyway. Yeah, so I should have blocked with my commander obviously, and I think I would have survived there if I blocked with the commander. Should have actually worked out combat and actually tried to top deck into something though. But anyway, it's cool to see a Syr Gwyn deck go off. That ended up at a 31/12 with all the keywords. 42 commander damage here as well. Hopefully you all enjoyed that one as well. Be sure to donate on Patreon if you are able to. A massive thank you to those of you who do that already. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.